What are you on about? You've heard about this oxymoron, and this will shock many, but for newbies, this will be a bombshell. That means you gotta have more sex, right? And this is the key and also the problem for many people. Millions of subscribers and a following. Well, yeah, how dare you make less than $100,000? You shouldn't work yourself to death. Sexuality is always not having a past. And what is money then? Business in general is a side effect. Hi, my name is Vitaly Kryukov. I am an entrepreneur, the founder of You Dance Why Digital. We've got Dmitry Ashepkov in the studio. He's a top Russian sales trainer. And we've got a fascinating dialogue, an interview with Alexander Palienko, who will tell us about himself because it's quite difficult to introduce him. And today we'll be talking about business, about entrepreneurship. And Dmitry and I, whenever we meet, and whenever we meet Sasha, we have a lot of questions, and questions that are interesting for us, interesting for our friends, interesting to other businessmen, and we've decided to set up an interview in this format. Maybe it's going to take too long, maybe it's going to be a bit shorter, but I hope this is something that businessmen will find interesting, and that's why we'll be talking about this today. So, let's jump right into it. The introduction. I've been working with you for a while, I've known you for a while, and I'm very interested in you. Tell me, what are you? Is there a word in the Russian language or the English language that would describe what you do? You know, we've tried to brand what I do for a long time, and we had to go take it down a notch and say that I'm a coach, an analyst, someone who developed their own method. And this does not convey what I do, but at least that allows people to understand that I'm not a psychotherapist, that I don't deal with the occult, and I don't deal with astrology. Is there anything that shows what you do? I've tried to come up with the word and it was incredibly difficult. And when you start pronouncing this, it sounds nonsensical because you work with energy, you work with vision, you work with analysis, and you use the experience you've accumulated by consulting other people and by conducting seminars. If we want to find out what a person does, we shouldn't ask the person doing this or the business owner, but we should ask their clients. And as far as I know, you have over 60,000 consultations in 20 years of practice, and you've consulted businessmen and you've consulted people who just go to work, maybe unemployed people, creative people. Who are these people? Why do they come to you? What do they want to get out of it? Well, what I do is, for them, I describe the world in a way that benefits them. And by describing the world in the way that I give them, it allows them to understand where to move in their personal lives, in giving birth to children, in their health, in business. In general, they get information about who they are. Because I give different information to different people, but there are general postulates as to why they're here, what they should do here, and how we should treat the world around us. So business, health, children, wives, that's all interrelated, right? Absolutely. And I would say that when you look at business, automatically you see wives or business partners, you see family members, friends, and children. And if a person, let's say, doesn't live up to their potential in the program they have, then there's a high chance that person will have a lot of kids because that person is not ready to fulfill oneself because they're conservative, because they're sluggish, because they don't want to transition to the next level. And it doesn't matter if we're talking about a man or a woman. In order to survive, they start making children. Sasha, who do you like working with? What spheres, what people do you like working with? I understand that a lot of people turn to you, that you gotta sign up half a year in advance because you're so busy. I love working with optimists, with people who want to progress, people who have their ideas, their desires, their knowledge as to where, how, and what they want to do, and they come to me so I can confirm or co-tune what they've already come up with. So with people who already have a vision, right? Absolutely. Because the people who don't understand, who don't know, who don't want things, who are afraid of things, who are hesitating, they're very difficult to work with because they want to shift responsibility to you and they're trying to hold you accountable for their failures and they're not ready to take in the good things that can come to them, and then they become arrogant, they become proud, and they judge other people. Tell me, please, people who come to you, people who you like working with, can all of them become businessmen? Well, what is business, right? Business is when you make money for something you do. So either you manage or you produce something yourself. And I'd like to say that practically anyone can be successful, but all you need to do is do your thing. What does it mean to do your thing? That's the key question, right? Your thing is in your program. And if you look at genetics or you look at astrology, then it clearly states who has what types of abilities, and sometimes they can be hidden or they can already be manifested. But you need to understand that until you start doing something you love, you won't be able to make the money that will bring you joy, success, health, and self-actualization. And if you don't identify with this, if you don't identify yourself with your thing, then you will always grow, you will always progress, and the only question is, where will I spend the money, and why do I need money? So it's a question about the innate talents, right? Yes. But isn't it about shifting responsibility to say that some people are talentless, that they're failures, and that's why they don't have money, huh? Or does everyone have a talent? Well, I'd like to say that everyone has some passion in life, depending on how much energy they have. When we don't have a talent, as we think, let's air quotes, talentless, that means we are not using the energy we're given correctly. So basically, in order for us to support our lives, we always get energy. And based on how we distribute that energy, it creates either interest and passion, or lethargy, or a negative outlook on life, or we either become optimists or we become depressive pessimists. So people either judge and reject because of their conservatism, or they progress and they have passion. And we all only have one way in development. That's all we can do. Only if we stop, even if everything was going well, at a certain moment we start identifying with it and we don't make a step forward, we start degrading, we start degenerating. And this means that we should destroy the world around us so the world doesn't destroy us. All right, it's a bit difficult to understand. But how can I understand if it's my thing or not my thing? The question here is, we should be honest with ourselves. This gives us the opportunity not to waste energy on things that are useless. When we honestly say, this is something I like, this is something I hate, this is something that makes me depressed, and this I'm terrified of. And for us, we need to clearly decide why we're living. If we don't decide why we're living, there's no point, and it's very easy to make that decision. Each of us is living to be happy, to be healthy, to be rich, to be young, and to live in that state for as long as possible. That's it. If we become aware of this, and whenever we do anything, we ask ourselves, does this bring me joy? Does this give me health? Does this make me richer? Does this make me younger? Does this make my life longer? And when we know what happiness is, what wealth is, what youth is, what longevity is, this allows us to understand the world and how we, given the instruments we have, can self-actualize. Everyone, when we come here, we know for certain, and if someone doesn't, people will tell him that he will die. On this planet, the mortality rate is 100%. So, we all come only with the purpose of experiencing happiness and getting joy. Happiness is being emotionally dependent from the world around us and from what others think, and to be within the good and realize why you're here, to fulfill your desires, and then the world starts adjusting to you. Joy means resonating with yourself, resonating with space, and resonating with what you do. And that's why I've got clear formula. When we honestly say that what we accept and what we don't accept, and then we say what we want, then we confess if we believe in it or not, and we try to move in this direction. And since there are certain models in place, you need to know how to see the good, knowing how to think, speak, and act creatively. You need to stop in time. So leaving the table a bit hungry. You should be grateful for everything, because whatever happens, happens from God, and what God gives you for good. And in the Bible, it says that not even a hair will fall from one's head without God's will. So everything that happens is the best case scenario, regardless. And you should never identify with what you do, with your business, with your art, with your powers. We're all men or women. And in general, the rest falls into place if we know that the mechanism of our life is established according to the following principle: development, professionalism, love, and then rebranding, leaving your comfort zone into the new, and once again, novelty, development, and the key aspect. The more we've experienced what's happening to us here and now, the easier it is for us to enter the new. And when developing, we've started thinking about the next step. This will allow us to transition to the new in love. When developing, we think about developing what we've acquired. It doesn't matter if it's a phone, a car, a business, a house, and we don't think about the next step. When we dive into love, and love is levity, transparency, due timing, authenticity, and universal resonance, this means that we start degenerating, because to transition into the new, we'll have to pass through the bad, and not everyone is willing to experience the bad, and that's why people degenerate. Well, who do you mean everyone, right? We've talked about whether everyone can become successful, and it turns out that given the right circumstance, everyone can. But the question is, there are people for whom life is easy. And for example, I've had easy successes and difficult successes. But there are people who keep on trying. They open one business, two businesses, five. Finally, at the 20th time, they succeed, and not necessarily so. It could be another failed attempt. So what is the difference between these two types of people? So according to your logic, do you think these people aren't moving in accordance with their program? Well, actually, no, in accordance with the program. That is their program, right? That is their program. And I'll say that I've failed so many times in life, and I've made so many mistakes, just so in the future that would allow me to progress. And why? There are two things we live for in life: happiness and pleasure. Two things that push us forward in life and kill us at the same time: pride and arrogance. And manifesting pride and arrogance means annulling the future, voiding the future, and being not ready to enter there in the appropriate state. Arrogance and pride are manifest in two stances. For example, a weak person is either starving or eating everything they see. Do they have a crown on their head? So they don't know balance, discipline. When we are willing to stop when we should, to leave the table a little bit hungry, to leave a group of friends when we're still having fun, not to overeat, because the principle is when we eat a little bit less, we get energy to develop. When we overeat, we get energy to slow down. And when you have good business, when you eat nice cakes, when you see interesting people, and when you eat too much, then you get energy to stop this from happening. And in order to restore, to recover, you need to put in a lot of effort, you need to put in a lot of energy and co-tune yourself. But if you eat a bit less, then everything will go perfectly because you'll get energy. But in order to eat less, you need to work with your arrogance and your pride. And so on the one hand, it manifests, and this is something everyone escapes from. So boasting, giving advice, judging others, and saving the weak. If you cross this out of your life and you have ideas and you have desires, you'll be super successful, you'll get rich quickly, and you have desires that push you to make money and to fulfill your desires. But there's the other side of pride and arrogance. Modesty, shyness, insecurity, indecisiveness, bitterness, and a tendency to make excuses. And I'd like to say to you that people most people prefer this type of weakness, this manifestation of pride. But if we look at energy, it turns out that people who boast, people who give advice, people who judge others, people who save the weak are, so to say, the lesser evil if compared to people who are shy, modest, insecure, and who adjust to others. So it's the quiet ones, right? Exactly. They're people who destroy the world, and if you're around these people, you just feel like you want to smack them. So yeah, they're frustrating, right? Absolutely. So you look at the program, right? So when we're modest, shy, bitter, and insecure, our subconscious produces energy to have others help us snap out of this state. And everyone wants to poke us, everyone wants to hurt us, and make fun of us. Well, yeah, there's people like this, right? And our subconscious forces them to do this to allow us to enter the level we should be at. So to the extent that we increase our capacity, to the extent that we get used to being failures and enjoying the process of learning new things and savoring the process but stopping in due time. And so we'll never be modest, we'll never be arrogant, and we won't think we're Napoleon, we won't think we're all that. So I think informationally, let's leave our listeners a little bit hungry so they keep interested, they stay interested, right, according to your own rules. So you said that you've made so many mistakes. There have been so many setbacks on your journey to success, and you'll probably have even more setbacks. So how should you treat failure? Always. The good comes through the bad. And when you're feeling good, you should look back and see that when you were feeling bad, the foundations for your current state were laid there. And the good is always established in order to increase your acceptance. So, at a recent training I was giving in Thailand, I was talking about self-love. And self-love is... So, we spend 70% of our life energy on accepting our past and accepting our present. And we spend 30% of our energy on disciplining the pleasure of accepting the new. And you know, so I've been giving consultations for many years, and when I came to this conclusion, and when all the pieces of the puzzle fit, I feel like I no longer feel aggression. I no longer feel dissatisfied with life, people, or events just because I understand the mechanisms. And the mechanism works the following way. When you've got 70% acceptance here, then the new 30 comes in very easily. But 70% compared to 30 new, right? But a lot of the time, we reject things. We judge, we get bitter, sometimes we're unhappy, we're dissatisfied. We complain, we don't notice the good sometimes, and as a result, like in school, you get lessons and you have to think creatively, you have to notice the good, and you have to be grateful. That's what I mentioned in the beginning. And when the new comes, and I'm going to hyperbolize here, when 30% of the new comes here, but regarding your acceptance of the new, this 30%, it looks like 300%. It feels like 300%. And then your subconscious forms the conditions for you to accept the world not through good, but you see obstacles. You yourself create your own obstacles, and you should be grateful and you should be accepting to expand everything tenfold so that 300% turns into 30. So when I travel, I love having problems on the way. It means that at this moment I'm increasing my here and now capacity, and that means that the 30% will enter well into my life, and I will use those 30%. So Sasha, you said that the new, that's clear, a person enters the new, they start using the new. I've got a lot of businessmen friends, and you know how it works? They start with a new project, they work really hard at it, and then they see one obstacle, two obstacles, three setbacks. And so the question is, Do you think the setbacks we see, are they lessons? Or is it a sign that maybe this is not something you should be doing? How do you evaluate this? So the question is, when you are moving into the new, your capacity is being evaluated. And you're either stopped in your tracks because you're lacking capacity, and that means you have to increase your capacity and you must enter it in a different state of consciousness. How do you do that? That's an important question. So this is what I call when you're feeling bad, when you're feeling hurt, when you're grateful. So you do counterintuitive things. So capacity is when you accept the shit in life and you're grateful for the shit in your life. Then, yeah, everything falls back into place. When you accept the worst case scenario, you're given the scenario that is meant for you. We're never given the bad. The bad is the good that isn't realized in time. So basically, when there's an accountant and they're given a computer and they're like, hey, here's the computer system for accounting, and then the accountant looks at the abacus and thinks, oh man, it's time to quit. Or the accountant could enter a new level, could master the computer program for accounting and start working on a totally different level. So as Vitaly said, when full shit happens, when there's setbacks, it makes sense to accept, to be grateful, to experience the story, and to move on. You understand that the world is pointing at your weak spots, right? So, how does our subconscious work? Everything that happens to us is financed by the subconscious. So when we have problems, setbacks, taxes, when people insult us, when people betray us financially, we financed ourselves to have this happen, to make us understand where we've got problems and that prevent us from achieving the ideal state we want to achieve. So if we're bitter, our subconscious pays others to hurt us. If we're hung up on relationships, it pays others to betray us. If we're hung up on money, it pays others to betray us financially. So when you know this mechanism, you are thankful and you say, yes, I am a bitter person. Yes, I'm hung up on relationships. Yes, I am living. I don't think of myself as a man or a woman, but I think of myself as a businessman, as my relationship, as my personality, as my skills. And when we do this, so energy, it flows through us like a river. And you know why we need chakra number 8 that no one talks about in the way it really is? And this will shock many, and for newbies it'll be a bombshell. So if just very quickly, so purple is our program, the purple chakra. What we have on the subtle plane, we're all programs. We're biorobots who are executing a function, and before something happens on the physical level, it happens on the subtle plane, and then it goes down to this level. So you will not be able to open a program until someone codes the program and installs the program. That's why we're limited by our program. We've got the blue chakra. That is awareness and understanding in regards to past experiences as to how the program can be executed. Models that you will use, words and images, that limit and decrease your capacity. There's also feelings. The feelings are the most important ones, and they're the ones that guide words, symbols, and knowledge. Then we've got the light blue chakra. It's the union of different knowledge you've received about the purple chakra and your creative ideas. That's the light blue chakra. Then we got the green chakra, acceptance of the past, acceptance of yourself, and acceptance of the present. And then we've got the yellow chakra, the law that allows you to process information to achieve happiness, health, wealth, youth, and longevity. Efficiency. Then we've got the orange chakra, the yin-yang harmony within. And this is the most dangerous chakra of all, sexual energy. The basis of everything. You know what sexual energy is? What? It's the lack of a past in your present. The less past you have in your present, the sexier you are, and this means the more potential you have to be rich. So we should always be new, right? Yes, but if we're entering the new, but we have old hang-ups that we haven't gotten rid of, we either die, or to save us from dying, we change our sexuality. Did I hear you correctly? in order to enter the new, we should have more sex. Is that right? Well, not quite. Here, and we'll talk about this a bit later, the question is, sexuality is always not having a past. When you don't have unsolved issues in the past, then there's fire in your eyes. Your eyes aren't sad. There's fire. You want to live. You love life because you've got excess energy. So there's nothing holding you back from the past, right? So when you've got unsolved issues, for example, erase everyone from your phone book. Erase all the numbers you're never going to call. Delete all the emails that you're never going to read again. Throw out all the clothes you'll never wear again. Get rid of all the real estate that's holding you down and get rid of the people who are difficult for you. And as soon as you do this, you'll feel a passion to life emerge. You'll feel great potential. And you'll either get the wish to save everyone, or the wish to boast, or the wish to judge everyone. You won't, there's no other way. And we've talked about this, right? Yes, because we want to go back to our past. We want to go a level down. We want to waste our excess energy. And that's why there are sexy women who could be rich, and that's 100% of the 100%, but they start posting too many photos on Instagram. They start telling people how great they are and how well they're doing, and they go down a level and they fall into the trap of wishful thinking. And the next chakra is the red chakra. I'd say it's materialization. So when yin and yang are materialized into actual events that are supposed to happen to us. So I'll briefly cover how female yin energy and male yang energy works. Everything comes to us as yin energy, divine energy, female energy. It's a state. It's a sensual state. Then we move along yang energy, knowing what we have to do. This is a state of awareness, yang energy. Then we have yang energy again. It's a state of action, of how we know what should be done. And then we've got yin energy again, materialization of what has happened on the level of the desire. So first we have a state, then we have materialization, and between them there's knowledge and action. So energy, sensual energy is distributed along those levels. And we must have 30% of the sensual, what we want, then 30% of the sensual, what I know I want, and then 30% of the sensual to what I do, and I do what I want, and that's why I enjoy the process. And the result, it can come in material form. It can be a car, a house, a business, a million, a wedding, sex. And the distribution is 30 state, 30 for knowledge, 30 for action, and 10 for the result. So what we want to see is when you get a result and you take it easy. You don't get euphoric. You don't feel like, wow, I finally got this. It's just you take it easy. Why? Because you're supposed to experience through this 10% and then move on to the next level. So basically the criteria is if I get a new car or a new laptop, new apartment, the question is, will I take it easy? Yes. So wealth means being at ease. If you're experiencing joy, it means you're not ready. And that means in the previous stages, you didn't get enough joy from knowledge or from action. So we shouldn't experience joy or we shouldn't experience pain. We should always be at ease. Well, no, we can experience short-term bursts, but this is an indicator of being hung up on things. It means hung up on the past and not wanting to move into the future. And what does being emotional mean? Being emotional means not being ready to accept good things or bad things, not being able to accept things, and that means forming the conditions for things to never reoccur. And this is what we talk about when we say capacity. If they desire the billions in such a way that it'll give him joy, and that will resonate with himself, with his space, and with what he does. And how do you define this? If you're ready to lose and you're ready to acquire and you still stay at ease. If you're not ready to lose, then your subconscious tells you, I don't need this. And after the red chakra, we've got the transparent chakra under the soles of your feet. And people don't really talk about it, but it's one of the most important chakras. It's a chakra that shapes events. So it's a projection that shapes the physical world. It's also called hell or purgatory. What takes place there? There's a cleansing. So to say, we're purged of what and who we are not. Our skills, our knowledge, our social status, money, material values, religion, and so on. So we're just a man or just a woman. If we know how not to associate ourselves with things we're not directly involved with, but at the moments of engagement, 80% of our identity is being a man or a woman, 10% is our space, male or female space, and 10% is what we do as a man or a woman. So your specialization, absolutely. And as soon as we stop doing this, we're not a cook unless we're making food. We're not a driver unless we're driving a car. We're not a singer unless we're on stage. But how about losing everything? We're talking about business, but we're talking about things. So 3 years ago, I would listen to this and I'd say, what is this nonsense? Just turn this guy off, shut him down. But now I understand how much sense you're actually making, how connected this all is. And I would like others to understand. I can explain this. So, when in your life you buy an iPhone 3 and you're like, wow, it's great, I got an amazing gadget, but then you have to lose it to buy an iPhone 4, then you need to lose that to buy an iPhone 5, and so on. You always have to lose things to get new things, instead of carrying all your 10 iPhones that you've had at a certain point in your life, and to lug all your textbooks starting from grade 1. Because this is mine, it's precious, it's my fate, that's my history. So you gotta lose to get. The clothes you wore as a kid, the shoes you wore as a kid that are too small for you and have gone out of style. But to do this, we're given special conditions. So the thought processes create an effect of loss and acquisition. Talk about things, we lose these things, we annul these things, we void these things. But if you're moving on, it works great. So when we tell someone we love them, we void our love. But as the Bible says, words must come from an excess of feeling. That's why you said these things, to lose what you had. But since the feeling gives you the new, it comes in and you enter a new stage of love. And if you are a coach or you tell people about your business, you need to move on. And what you said yesterday is no longer interesting, and what you're telling today is interesting, and then it will lose appeal as well, because people want to know what you'll be saying tomorrow. And then for you this works great, because the past doesn't hold you back. You've told people about the best things you know to move on to the next level. You've taken out your old closet and you've bought a new closet to replace it. So lost the old and the new. I have 2 practical cases. Well, they're not practical cases, they're life cases. There were 2 people. One of them was Ayas, and you know him. 2 friends, mentors, my business mentors. And the other guy is, I won't tell him, say his name. And they found themselves in a similar situation, and they would owe from 10 to 100 million rubles, a company debt. And Ayas, he made it, and he didn't give up. He said, I'm going to work on this. But the other guy said, I'm not going to work on this. And, I accept this and all. But he's an idiot, and he still owes this money. And he's quietly, slowly giving this money back. But Ayas came out. And so why do some people give up and say, I have given up, I'm not ready to do this, but others move on? Resource. What resource? If you don't waste your energy on hesitation, on bitterness, on self-pity, and if you surround yourself with people you need, this will allow you to make correct decisions. If Ayas hadn't surrounded himself with a particular type of people, he would have given up like the second guy. So it all boils down to, we don't shape our lives. People around us shape us. We can choose people around us and they will shape us. And when we choose the people around us carefully, we create an effect of change of our lives, For example, it's not a business case study, but still. I'm talking to a woman, and she asks me, she says, I feel like God is always helping me, no matter what I do. So if I got a job, the next job will be better. If I've got this job, then the other one will be even better. If I've got a boyfriend, then the other boyfriend will be even better than the last one. And the one after that will be even cooler. And I've had this and kaboom, it's gone. And she says, I'd like to know. Why? And I tell her, okay, tell me my story. And she says, I had a boyfriend and we broke up. I had a job. I was fired. And as a result, I've got a boyfriend I like. He's cool. He's better than my last boyfriend. And I would reject him for a couple months. And he disappeared. And then for 3 years, my personal life was non-existent. I had no money. This is something that never happened. And I feel like this is wrong. And when I started looking into the situation, I said, this guy was supposed to be with you for 3 years. And in that time, you would have gotten an apartment in Moscow, a Mercedes, and a business of your own. And then you ask yourself the question, why didn't this happen? And the answer is simple. Vampires were surrounding you. And I'm sorry for introducing a new word. Vampires are people who are not in accordance with your law, your perspective, and your attitude towards life. You know who the vampire was? The mother who moved to Moscow with her and who was scared that her daughter would leave her and leave her alone. And since the mother was thinking through negation and through fear, and the daughter would adjust to the mother, this drained her life energy. And since a woman is supposed to give a man energy, then this man was prescribed to her, but she could not have been able to give him energy, and that's why she should have gotten the good through the bad, and she preventively understood this and denied talking to him because she didn't have enough energy for him. And as a result, I told her, if you had moved away from your mother, it was super easy to do. Just move out from your mother. I would have been talking to a millionaire now, with her own business, with her own apartment, and an amazing boyfriend. So it's a question of people around you. Is that part of the program, or what do you think is the basis? So your people around you give you resources for life. I want to see Tinkov, a billionaire, among my friends. And how do I improve the quality of people around me? How can this billionaire find me useful to want to hang out with me so I could invite him for an interview like this? So people are drawn to others for one reason: energy. So if you're self-sufficient, if you enjoy life, if you do everything with pleasure, if you know how to say no, if you're not hung up on things, and you get billionaires around you, or people of the same level or even higher. So we say 1, 2, 3, we got these rules, and at a certain point that will lead me to new people around me, right? So people are drawn to energy, but we also know that energy draws in also bad people. Problematic, weak, insecure, bitter, indecisive people are drawn, but also strong people, people who take responsibility, people who take action, and people who don't blame others for their problems and misfortunes. And then we say these things are just random, right? Well, I mean, they're not random. So, first, we should stop being negative. We should stop being bitter, pretentious. We should stop judging. We should stop making excuses. And also, we should start enjoying things no matter what we do. And the question is, and perhaps I'm taking things a bit too far, but I want people to understand this here and now. If we do something, we do this with joy, or we don't do this at all. If we don't get joy, but we have to do something, we take a breath, we find something good in this, and only then we start doing this. Why? We should always have the resource for the future, and a state in which we do things now. The state is multiplied and moves on to the future, but again, multiplied. So, for example, if we are a good manager, we've got a great salary, we've got a prestigious job, but we hate our job, most probably we'll fall ill, we'll die, we'll have a heart attack, or we'll die in a car crash. How soon? Because you hate your job, right? Well, it depends on how much joy and happiness resource you find in other spheres. If there's no joy and happiness in other spheres, this will happen very quickly. And please note, you can half-ass the way you do business and get joy out of it. You could sleep until noon and enjoy it. You can, and I'm not promoting these things, you could play World of Tanks and enjoy this. And you'll make money, you'll live, you'll enjoy things, and you'll have more than a top manager working at a miserable job he hates. So it's like a bad vacation is better than a good job, right? Well, let's put it this way. People have horoscopes, and there's two types of horoscopes. A harmonious horoscope and a horoscope with, there's a lot of squares there. I'm not an astrologist, and that's why I'm not an expert in the way I'm formulating this, but the basic principle is if a person has a harmonious horoscope, he can work as at a cash register in Auchan and be fully happy. They don't need anything at all. But if a person has a lot of different squares, they got issues with their parents, they got conflicts, problems, loathing, and hang-ups. And the bad is the potential of the good that can happen to us if we turn the bad into good. If we accept it and we're thankful for it instead of judging for it and being bitter about it. But at the same time, we will refrain from loving what we hate. It's dangerous. For example, if our mother was a difficult person, trying to force yourself to love her is like being a hedgehog who's sitting on a stump and trying his hardest not to fart. So you can't force yourself to love your mother. You've got to accept the mother the way she is. Let's say she misbehaved, let's say she fought, let's say she drank, and she didn't do things that were good for her child, but she is the person who laid the foundations for your success. And you can either break or become successful. I don't know how appropriate this is, but I will ask this and correct me if it's inappropriate. Can you tell me what are your top 5 fatal mistakes, or give me examples of your mistakes in your consultation, setbacks, spanners in the works that you've had that led up to this present moment, to your fame, hundreds of thousands of consultations and so on and so forth, millions of followers and high levels of demand. Before this, what were the key obstacles in your life? You know, the biggest obstacle was righteousness, internal. Righteousness, spirituality, and a wish to save everyone. So when you didn't swear, right? Yeah, so the state when I would lose a colossal amount of energy was when I would save all the weak and I would judge all the wicked. It's what we talked about in the beginning, right? The top 2, yeah? So I'd say that this was given to me on purpose. I was insecure, I was too spiritual, I was too righteous. I was trying to save and help everyone with advice, with effort, with money, by taking part in their lives, by giving them compassion. And I'd like to say that I spent a lot of years on this, and I would lag behind for a long time. And when I started asking myself, why was I being so stupid? I saw that all the people I had saved tried to stick a knife into my back. All the weak people I helped would never give me the money back. And they would also accuse me, they would say, how dare you ask money from me? Go make your own money. In general, this was the first result of the mother and the father who lacked self-love. And I was supposed to work on getting a level of acceptance. And when I'd had enough of this altruism, selflessness, that at a certain point I simply came to realize that I should try to do things differently. I tried to do things differently, and I realized that you can live differently and it works, but first to experience discomfort. How is it to live differently? You need to know how to say no to the weak. You need to know how not to help others when you want to. You need to know how to do things for yourself and not for others. You need to know how to dream and to want things for yourself and not for others. So, talking about help, knowing to say no. What if people ask you for help? Should you help? Well, you've got to consider the situation. So, there are people who take responsibility and all they need is a shoulder to lean on, then of course, give them that. But if they want to put all responsibility for their lives onto you, then tell them to screw off. So, basically, the more problems a person has, internal problems, the more problems they have with their parents, with their grandparents, the more potential they have to become successful in life, the more results they can achieve in life. If they don't have issues, if everything's going well, it's a degeneration and death, right? Yes. So here's what it's about. So basically, the shittier your life is, the happier you should be, right? Well, you know this rapper guy, Oxymoron. Yeah, his lyrics. Well, he's happy, right? Well, a person is on the edge of depression, and they've got problems with duality. He's got problems with schizophrenia. He doesn't want to live. Why? And I'll tell you why. When a new program comes into your life, it always looks vicious. If someone offers you to take a helicopter ride and to pilot the helicopter, and you don't have the necessary skills, that's deadly, right? And if you don't acquire the skills on piloting a helicopter in time, you are screwed. So when we're given a talent, when we're given the necessary circumstances, if we don't learn to use our talent in time and we start to identify with our talent or start to fear the talent, this leads to death. And that's why when something is given to us, when we get a lot of something, we also have to give a lot. So this can be a curse or it can be a blessing. So if you're given an amazing race car that can go from 0 to 300 in 10 seconds, but you don't know how to drive. So it's like a question of what happens if you give $1 million to someone who's only making $1,000 a month? Well, you know what? I'd say get torn to bits, and his only chance of salvation is giving it all to charity. Yeah, but can he grow because of it? Well, yes, he can, but I'd like to say that as a rule, these people hide. Because when we've got demand, when we've got desire, and we're willing to lose, and we take it easy, we already have the million. So we have the million, 100%. And so let's say we got a program. But look at this. So we've got a program. We've got questions, we've got plans, we prepared for this interview. And I ask myself, how do I lead into the next question about profit, to talk about business in general, and then to transition into money? And then how does it happen that whenever we're talking, you, at the end of your reply, you already lead into the next question? Well, as I said, there's a program. I've read your article, yeah? Well, I didn't read your article, but there's a program, and there's a logic to what happens to us. And if we resonate with our program, then our desires are fulfilled in relation to how much they fit into the program. And when we're resonating with your program, then you think that you want to buy red shoes or a blue car, but really that's not what you want. That's what your program says, and you're given the opportunity to want this if you resonate with the program. And if you get rid of your fear and you're ready to lose and you're ready to, and you don't want to identify with anything, or you tell yourself when you identify with something, then that's when the transition takes place. But financially, I'd like to say that it's even more interesting in that area, because with people, you should always first have a connection on the thin plane. We have to exchange IP addresses to connect. And when you acquire things, we also have to first have a connection in place. Because let's say when you make money, it's like in the film, Don't Worry, I'm With You. It's not your tooth. It's not even my tooth. That's his tooth. So the question is, it's like you've made some money, right? But the money was made to give you money for a specific purpose, to buy. And these are purchases you must make. And if you make the wrong purchases, you're gonna suffer financially. So let's say if saving up for an apartment, I have to buy the apartment. No, you'll be given a project, as far as I understand, and this project will allow you to make money to buy the apartment. Yes, but if I get the money and if I don't buy it, that means I'll suffer. If you don't buy the apartment, you'll suffer, right? Well, I've got to clarify a couple of things. the advantage of my experience is that when I've been giving consultations for many years and I receive feedback, I say that these are things that God has a template for. Don't worry, God has a template for everyone. And I think even when He launches, the people who help us, they're just bots. They're artificial intelligence that has already been produced by God. So God doesn't really care about how things will work out. They work out instantly. And so before buying a computer, buy a phone. Before buying a fridge, buy a computer. Before you buy an apartment or a house, buy a car. So it's very important to be consequential. If you violate the sequence, you have problems. So you can want an apartment, but you should have a car before you have the apartment. And so you need to find a mechanism to influence your income, right? So this is a question we wanted to ask. Maybe it's a bit broader. What does it mean to influence the income of your company? Are there mechanisms associated with this aim? Like what? Pleasure. So, enjoying the process or enjoying the result? Well, in general, business is a side effect. To live, we need to eat. Want it or like it or not, we gotta eat. There are people who eat prana, but most of us eat. And we need to make sure that we enjoy food as well. So business is like eating. It's something we have to do. We have to have a business. It has to be small business or large business. You can be employed by someone or you can be self-employed. But you can peel some potatoes and you can fry it, or you can go to a restaurant and enjoy a meal there. That's business. But you know what? The body will consume microelements, vitamins, and nutrients from what you've eaten, depending on how your thyroid is working, and it dictates how well you will absorb nutrients and how well your digestive tract is functioning. So basically, you can eat a fantastic meal, but your body will not accept it and it will not do you good. So here you can make a lot of money, but it will not do you any good. You will lose the money, or you'll misinvest them, or that money will be stolen. And that's the best case scenario. It's better than buying something that's useless, something that'll weigh you down, that'll drain your energy, and something that won't allow you to make more money until you solve the problem what you've acquired. So when I make my first million, that money's been taken from me. I gave it away. And it's a good thing, right? That's what saved me, right? Well, yes. So you were eating very nutritious food that you weren't able to digest. And then you puke, you have diarrhea, or you have health problems. And so when reflectively our subconscious works and money is taken from us, so to say we get our stomachs pumped and we survive, and you know what the best part is? When I was looking at people who make a certain amount of money, a large amount of money, before they start doing this, they would lose a lot, lose so much. And this ratio of how ready you are, whether it's worth it, and the reason is very simple. When you've set up a mechanism to make money, you've also got to set up a mechanism to spend money. There are people who have a desire but have no money and they're depressed, but there are also people who make money but they have no desire and they're also depressed. And here we've got to strike a balance. So you should make money if you have a desire that needs to be fulfilled and that will bring you joy. And if you observe this principle, these wishes will define whether you get money or not. If you're willing to lose and you don't show off and you don't get angry at people who do things wrong.
Все, блядь,